So welcome to the NYC Real Estate Expo. My name is Daniel Moskowitz, and my co-host today is Elliot Bayev. And we are just so excited to serve you today. Our topic is Sales Jiu-Jitsu, the 7 secret black belt strategies to double your conversion rates for your real estate business. And in my day job, I'm the director of sales of an organization called Advance Your Reach. And I've helped grow that organization from over $2 million to $20 million in the last 3 years. And Elliot, my co-host, has 25 years of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu experience. He's a second-degree black belt champion, winning tons of medals. And as an entrepreneur, he runs a successful MMA studio in Toronto. Let me set the intention for the talk today. Almost 15 years ago, my wife and I had an incredible agent, an incredible broker, help us purchase our first home. I got to tell you, it was a stressful, it made us very nervous. It was the single greatest investment in the end of the day to kickstart the wealth that I've been able to establish over the last 15 years. And I know that's what you do for so many others, which is incredible. And so our intention today is to really provide you some tactical strategies that are going to help others make the right decision for their families, for their lives. And so I want to thank all of you for what you do. It's such an important role in generating incredible wealth for individuals and helping them make those right decisions. So sit back the next 40 minutes. This is our gift to you. And we're looking forward to about 20 minutes of Q&A on the back end where, take some good notes and hopefully we can interact together a little bit on the back end of this presentation. So thanks so much for that. So listen, there I was minding my own business on Facebook as one does. And I got a note from a friend of mine that Elliot was running a jiu-jitsu program for small business owners. And I had just lost 100 pounds and I was looking for a way to connect my body back to my mind.
So I have a program for entrepreneurs, as Daniel mentioned, called Mastermind BJJ, and we do some private training kind of early in the morning and then go for a networking brunch. And as Daniel came out, every once in a while, as I was teaching a technique, you would see his eyes light up. And as we went to brunch, I asked him, what was it that stuck out to you? And as we kind of unpack things, it just seemed like there were so many amazing parallels between the way I teach jiu-jitsu and the way he teaches sales. And someone at the table suggested, as they kept hearing these synergies happen, hey, you guys should write a book. A few years later, here we are.
Yeah, it was incredible to have the book come together. The way that Elliot teaches jiu-jitsu, and I would hear something like, oh, wait a minute, that's how I teach objection handling, or that's how I teach on how to do training. And it was incredible how this came together. And one of the core elements that really separates this is focusing on winning without hurting anyone. This is the thing that really separates our teaching.
So it's very natural when you hear of martial arts and sales to think something doesn't add up there, because only old school sales is that kind of combative mindset, whereas modern sales is sales as a service, sales as a cooperative experience. And one thing to understand is we're not trying to compete against the prospect or with the prospect. If we know, as you all do, that your services can be of service, can be a benefit to the prospect, then anything that gets in the way of you being able to serve them is the opponent. So we're not competing with them. We're competing with the forces that get in the way of you actually being able to serve them.
So as the book came together, it became very apparent the kind of big level problems that we solve for folks in the sales domain. And it's things like if you're running a team, it's the team isn't overcoming objections. The team isn't closing at the high enough rate that I want them to. We're not getting consistent results from your reps in the field, or for yourself. Maybe no matter what you do, you're having new prospects you're trying to go after in different niches that are not engaging with you, or you're getting objections that are now, because of market shifts and conditions, you can't handle, or deals that you knew that were going to close kind of fell through. And as the book came together, we created 30 different strategies that are in different domains that really address all those issues.
So as you can see, the Sales Jiu-Jitsu system is built on a 4-part framework I created for really to allow my students to be successful in the competition arena, and we apply that to a sales engagement. And so we use a jiu-jitsu competition as an analogy for a sales engagement and follow these four phases: pre-fight, what happens before the engagement; fight, how we show up for the engagement; winning, how we close the deal; and post-fight, what we do after an engagement, win or lose.
And so what we're doing today is we're taking 7 of these out, because in the Sales Jiu-Jitsu system, we got the 30 to implement the full system. And what we've done is we've tested these things on both the mats and in business. And it's generated hundreds of millions of dollars in sales. So it's a proven system. And so we're picking 7 of the strategies. And over the next about 30 minutes, when implemented correctly, these 7 are going to be a powerful way to increase your sales or your team's conversion rates with existing lead sources. We know that it's very competitive now in the real estate market. And you need to have every single lead that you are getting, that you close them at a higher rate. And stick with us for the next 30 minutes. And when implemented correctly, these 7 strategies are going to be very powerful for you.
So the first principle we're going to talk about is train, or how we train in jiu-jitsu. And what separates jiu-jitsu from other martial arts are not necessarily the techniques, but how we approach training them. We're going to take a look at a quick video that's going to break this down on the mats so we can understand how it applies in the sales engagement.
Pre-fight is broken down into inner game intelligence and strategy. In intelligence, we study the field. We look at the history of jiu-jitsu and current and upcoming trends. Learning from studying that a lot of people, when they start a match, are going to proactively choose to take the bottom position because it allows them to either knock their opponent down and get on top, or possibly even pull them into a submission, which ends the match. We need to develop a strategy to address that. If we like to take the fight to the ground, if we like to be on top, we don't want our opponent to be able to get to the bottom without getting punished for it. So if I can take Dan down before he's able to pull guard by, say, using a long distance technique like the low single, or if as he comes to me to pull guard, I can sweep his foot out of the way, or while he's pulling guard, I can counter him and bypass getting to side control or knee on belly, I can still play my game without having to be at risk of kind of getting pulled into his game without having the opportunity to be advanced or winning the match. Now, these are great. These are excellent strategies, excellent game plans, knowing that many people will pull guard. But it's not enough to have a strategy in theory. You have to test it. What separates jiu-jitsu from many, many martial arts that even have the exact same techniques is that we train against resistance. How do I know this is really going to work unless I've tested it against someone who's trying to stop me? So I'll get you back up a bit. So we start a match. I know he's going to come in. I have one of these options. Maybe I choose my long distance one. Maybe I come in to try to sweep his foot. But his goal when we train like this is to actually get to the bottom before I can do that. So go, he tries to get to the bottom, it's kind of halfway there. Go, he comes in. Would I have gotten that? We don't know. He tries to pull. I try to bypass, it didn't work. Excellent. This is reality. Unless you do this kind of training, unless you actually fail in the training, you won't be ready to when a real challenge comes up in a real situation.
So, my teams would always I would give them pre-scripted objection handling, and they would go and they'd do it and they'd say, yeah, we did it. But on a live call, that role play fell apart. They weren't able to replicate that success. And so I changed the model. When I learned this from Elliot, I changed it to the concept of sparring partners. And what I do now in the organization is when my sales teams, every week, they are matching themselves up with others, and they take a real world scenario and they have a 1 hour session where they become the prospect that they couldn't overcome for their partner. And sometimes they'll do accents. Sometimes it'll be if the person was grumpy, if the person was happy, like whatever that scenario was. And they'll actually train with real resistance, real world scenarios in the moment that week. And it became from something being a chore to something that lit them up. And what we've done is we've created a lot of tools in our coaching program. And and these are all birthed from our book. And one of them is a sparring training log. And what this does is allow folks to be able to take the information, like what was a new way that an objection handling happened? What was a new way that was a new way to get into a niche? And so what I would encourage you to do, if you're an agent, if you're a broker, like I would get with another person in your domain and actually spar out like actual scenarios. Be diligent about recording conversations and having that to go back to and really analyze, and then use that as your way in to really train hard, to sharpen the saw and be able to really master this in a really powerful way. So we're going to move into the fight section now. And as we're all sales professionals here. So as black belt sales professionals, we get paid to solve problems. And then with this in mind, we're going to take you through 3 strategies in the domain of fight.
The heart of jiu-jitsu, the core principle that all of it's based on from the most basic to the most advanced level, is positioning. And this idea we're going to look at in 3 different ways: securing our position, improving our position, and setting up our win. So we're going to take a look at a quick video that introduces this idea of positioning on the mats. So again, we can apply it off.
The secret to jiu-jitsu, from the most basic to the most advanced levels, is all based on one principle, the principle of positioning. From a good position, things are easy. From a bad position, things are difficult. In the art of war, they say if you're fighting on a hill, is it better to be at the top fighting down or bottom fighting up? Top fighting down, because it gives you unfair advantages. So in the previous example, we saw if Dan tries to pull guard on me here, I want to get past his legs. Getting from what we call his guard on that side of his legs to what we call side control here is a major improvement. Now, a common mistake is once we get here to try to rush to the next position, and if we do, we'll often get caught back between his legs. What we want to do instead is understand that this is a big advantage. Instead of rushing to win the fight from here, I want to make sure I really have this position down. So what can I do for that? Well, I need to understand what he wants. He doesn't want to be here. He wants to get this leg back in. He wants to do what we call reguarding, put me back in his guard. Or he wants to get this arm under mine and come up and take me down. So to prevent both of those, 1, I want to get tight to him. 2, getting under his arm prevents him from turning up to his side, and getting under his head allows me to really start cementing this position. But from here, I could just decide to go to the mount, but you see how this arm is between us. This is going to allow him to keep me at bay. So now that I've secured my position a little bit, I could try to improve it. But instead, it's wise to try to improve it even further. So now that this arm can no longer keep distance, it's going to be very difficult for him to get this knee in. The idea being that when you establish a good position, your first job is to make sure you keep it. It took a lot of work to get there. Instead of trying to jump to the next step, make sure you dig yourself in and do not get pushed back an inch.
With leads being such a sparse thing, like getting more lead flow in the door, and you're doing those activities, spending that money, when they come in the domain of having a conversation with you, every single one of them counts. And if you take this concept by securing your position, it's a battle of inches. And if you don't jump to the end and you'll be disciplined in doing all the steps leading up, it will be incredible. So, in this domain of secure your position, as we bring it into the domain of sales, if you're having different types of niches that you're going into, sometimes you don't know all the questions to ask. Maybe you're used to selling in the suburbs and now you're looking to maybe expand into city. Maybe you want to focus in now that people want to work from home. You're now selling things with that lens in mind, or you're selling a home, or you're trying to help buy a home in that regard. Maybe for busy executives, now that they want to have a better balance of working from home than they ever thought possible. It changes the dynamic. And if you're new into that, you may not be able to answer all the questions, what I call getting to the truth of the matter, the why behind the problem that you solve. Ultimately, you're trying to solve a problem for an individual to find the right fit for their home, or trying to get the best price for the seller. And you need to understand what do they want to get out of this? What is their element that they need to get? And if you really understand this at a deeper level, you're going to be able to have that connection with that individual at a deep level, and they're not going to want to go to anybody else. They're going to want to be with you. And so that's the first step in secure your position.
Once we've established a good position, that's when we can think about actually improving it. And this can mean many things. This can mean a major step forward, but again, we want to understand how vital and how precious positioning is, or having a good position. So the idea is to make small incremental improvements rather than large giant steps. We're going to take a look at another video breaking this down.
Once we've established a good position and secured it, now it's time to improve it. And that can mean many things. That could mean a major improvement in position. It can mean a micro improvement in position. So for example, we saw that when we get to a good position, we need to secure it. We need to ensure we have dominance here. Now, I could consider getting rid of this arm to be improving my position where I am, or by moving into a major step forward, what we call the mount. This is a significant improvement in position, but nonetheless, from here, it's very easy to think, oh, I should jump to victory. No, there are still small improvements that we can make from here. So for example, if I didn't have an arm under Dan's head, that means he has a lot of freedom. So simply getting that arm under the head is an improvement in my position. He wants his elbows tight. I want his elbows exposed and vulnerable. So simply getting my hand in and sliding his arm up is a major improvement in my position, or a minor improvement in my position rather. So it is important to establish good positions and then make sure you secure them. But once we have, then it's time to improve. And again, that can mean minor improvements, it can mean major improvements, but we always default to never being pushed back.
All right, so as we move into the domain of improve the position, as sales professionals, if you've ever been in a situation where you're getting really close to the end and another influencer comes in and kills the deal, like what I call hidden decision makers. And, for yourselves, obviously, you're trying to buy a home. It's usually with a partner, the two people, sometimes it's individual, but most of the times it's a couple in some way, shape or form that are looking to move in. But they may have influencers on them that you don't know about. It could be the people that are speaking into their ears. It could be parents and good friends and aunts and uncles, or, who else is speaking into their ear other than you that could influence how they move forward, either with you or within the deals that you're trying to make. And when you know who all those people are and you bring them into the fold early on, I have to say, like when I've sold multi-million-dollar deals with organizations, those hidden decision makers tend to be like board members. And oftentimes it was really finding those people, getting them out of the woodwork and getting them out early. So imagine if the parents of one of the two partners is influencing them, imagine bringing them into the fold early on. And what would that change the dynamic of your ability to influence them through the process and ultimately signing with you in either whatever domain as a seller or a buyer?
So now that we've done the work of securing a good position and improving our position from that initial good position, now we can start thinking about the end game. But again, very common mistake is to try to jump into the close. And positioning is so important. We want to think of it as what makes losing impossible and winning inevitable. So rather than try to jump to the close, you want to set things up so that it's inevitable that that close is going to happen almost on its own. We're going to take a look at how this applies on the mats.
Okay, now that we've established a good position, secured our position, and improved it, it's time to set up our win. So for example, I got past Dan's legs, I secured the position, I improved my position into the mount. Within the mount, I improved my position by getting rid of his arm. And now it's good that we're in a good position, but now we need to actually start thinking about finishing the match. So rather than just jump into a submission, we want to secure it step by step in order to start setting up our win. For those that are familiar with Jiu-Jitsu, they'll know this, but those that aren't, there's a very powerful submission that hyperextends the arm. Dan's arm goes from 90 degrees to 180, but it doesn't go past 180. If I can get into a position where I can hyperextend his arm, he'll be forced to tap, and that will allow me to win the match, and we'll get into the finer details there. So the idea being that rather than jump into that submission, I want to put myself in position so that I can. I want to make sure this is a secure position as well, rather than just jumping on the submission, hoping for victory without a lot of security.
So in setting up the win, the domain of sales, I want to give you guys a bulletproof way to handle any objections within the sales process. And what I call this is COI, or the cost of inaction statement. And what most people do is kind of ignore the cost of inaction, or they actually state the cost of inaction for the customer. And what you should be doing is getting the customer, making the customer state the cost of inaction themselves, kind of drawing that out of them. And the cost of inaction is what would happen if they don't make the decision to work with you? Or what would be the cost of inaction if they don't put their house on the market now, or go and become a buyer now? If you fully understand what the cost of inaction is for either domain, what would that happen for them? Like, what would that mean for them? It means that they're going to lose out on an opportunity to make a lot of profit right now because it's a hot market, or lose the opportunity to get in before it gets too hot and they can't even afford anything. Like, what is that cost for them? And it's going to be different for each individual. But when you get that out of them, meaning you can't state it for them, and understand, you have to listen to the cadence of it. It's very different for somebody saying, well, I guess if I don't do it, then I won't make the money, versus them saying, I guess if I don't do it, I won't make the money. And you need to understand and feed it back to them when you need this. If they say no to you, you're like, wait a minute, you said to me this. And you can bring that out, the cost of inaction, whatever that statement was, and handle pretty much any objection that gets thrown at you, especially late in the sales process. Now, listen, what Elliot is about to share with you around what it takes to never let a sale slip through your fingers, it was very, very powerful for me, and really, really, I think it's going to be powerful for all of you as well.
So just for a little context, jiu-jitsu is often compared to chess with the body. And just like in chess, where there is a checkmate, and in sales, where there is closing the deal, in jiu-jitsu, our checkmate move is what we call a submission. It's a move that forces the opponent to signal defeat and victory for you. And a very common mistake when we actually have done the work to not only establish a good position, improve it, set up our win, and then finally attack the submission, is to try to finish it right away. There's an expression, most people are not successful in their endeavors because they're not as careful in the end as they were in the beginning. We want to apply the same principle of positioning that got us here to these last few steps. And so when we get to a submission, as we'll see in a second, whether it be a choke or a joint lock, we want to make these tiny incremental improvements. They become that much more important than they were on the way here. We're going to take a look at this in action.
Now that we've secured a good position, improved it, and set up our win, we need to attack. But rather than attack a submission and jump right to the finish, there's an in-between step that a lot of people miss. So I'll get your head on this side. So say I've already gotten into the mount with Dan. I improve the position in the mount by getting his elbow up. I set up my win, sliding all the way up into what we call the S mount here. Now we would attack the armbar by shooting our leg over his head, and just notice how long it takes him to tap if my knees are super loose here. Long time. Notice the difference if I do a good job of reinforcing this position before trying to finish, pinching my knees together, pointing his thumb down towards his toes. Look how much sooner he taps. So once you get to the finish of the fight, it's very easy, very natural for people to want to just run to victory. Rather than that, there are lots of little things we can do to ensure that when we go for that victory, it's going to be cemented 100%.
So in this domain, it's like if you've ever been deep in a sales process and you know that somebody should be salivating to want to work with you, like they just want it. What could be happening is you're not doing what we call future casting. And if you can see anything of this system, it's about incremental elements that if you always do them, every time you've been disciplined to do them, the outcomes become inevitable. And so one of these things is future casting. It's co-creating a future of what their lives could be like once the problem you solve for them is buying a house, selling a house, getting a mortgage, getting a mortgage. And so what I want you to consider is thinking about what does that future look like for them? What's possible for them financially? How is their family going to feel with the right location? What's going to happen to them financially when they sell at the right time and be able to afford that dream house? Or maybe they need to downsize. Maybe they need to go and retire. And so what's their retirement going to be like? Because you've been able to maximize the value of their home. And now they have this nest egg that they can go and retire in a safe and secure way. One of our students, Craig, who purchased our course, he runs a successful financial advisory in Florida. When he doubled down on future casting, it literally within that same month won hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of new business for them. You know, if you want to be picked as that agent in a hot market and you want to become that go-to person for them, you need to spend the time to co-create that future, regardless of the domain in which you're selling or helping them with buying, and really have them emotionally connect to that future together. And it's not something that you can do for them. And you don't want them have only them either. You need to co-create it. So it's as if it's a shared dream that you're both living together and you're going to help them achieve it.
One of the worst feelings must be kind of getting to that closed deal, and after all said and done, it falling through your fingers. And on the mats, the worst feeling is to actually have earned the victory and not keep it. And so how does this play out? We have to be careful not to take the signals of victory as victory itself. When you win a match, the opponent will tap you. What do you do if the opponent taps you here, but the referee's over here? If you take the opponent tapping as you won and you let go, and this has happened to me, it's happened to my students where, wanting to be a nice person, I didn't want to hurt them. So when they tap, I let go of the move. But if the ref didn't see it, now you're just hoping that this person is going to have integrity and acknowledge and admit that, yes, they actually did signal victory, or that they did give up. We do not in a match give up, we do not let go of the move. We don't let go when the opponent taps. We let go when the ref pulls us off. And that's very important. We have to be very careful not to kind of fall for the signal versus the actual victory being in our hands.
The worst thing as a sales manager is hearing a sales professional come to me and says, "Hey, I made the sale." And the next day they're like, "Oh, they pulled out." And if this is happening to you, what I find is that there's a emotional reinforcement, a cementing that needs to happen once they make the initial signal to say yes. Once they sign that document, they still have some time to get out of it. And you want to make sure that they understand what are all the amazing things you're going to do for them. What is the process that you're taking them through? What is the next 24, 48 hours, 7 days? What does that look like? Spend the time to have them celebrate the future that you're going to help them create together, that cements a sale. That makes them feel at the end peace that they made the right decision to work with you. And when I see people not doing this, you're going to get cancellations. You're going to get people that back out of deals. And we don't want that for you. And so this is a great strategy to really cement the sale. And as we move into the last domain here in post-fight, if you've ever been in a situation where you absolutely nailed it with somebody on one day, but you have the exact same individual the next day, and for whatever reason, you didn't nail it with them. And this is why you need systems. And I had always reviewed my lost sales, all my lost sale calls. That's where I always focused on my time. What I rarely did was review my wins. And what Elliot shared with me about how he looks at a win completely changed my thinking around this.
If you're a professional, as Daniel said, you're already analyzing your losses. You need to learn what went wrong and what you can do. And we treat it the same on the mats with my competitors, but it's very easy to overlook the wins, especially the quote unquote easy wins. And this became very prescient. This was very obviously valuable when I had a purple belt student facing a local black belt in a mixed martial arts match. And we knew, because jiu-jitsu specializes in ground fighting, we knew that if the black belt was going to have a good chance, it was probably going to be on the ground. So the strategy was not to let the opponent take us down, not even to make it, not even allow it to be possible. My student won the match in 2 or 3 minutes. It'd be very easy to look at that and say, oh, there's nothing to learn. It was very one-sided, and it was. But there was one moment where we were doing a good job keeping distance, but the black belt shot from a really long distance and got close enough to my student to grab his hips. My student stopped it, got on top right away, and won in the next 30 seconds or so. But why did the black belt get that close? Had we not done this analysis, we would not have seen that my student was doing a good job keeping distance, but he was staying static in front of the opponent. And this is where Daniel talks about systems and the importance of having something that you do every time becomes so important, because had we not, as a system, done that post-mortem, even on our win, we would not have gleaned some very valuable information that ended up being very relevant in his next fight.
So listen, I know it's a hot market right now. I know that leads are a problem, but at some point that won't be, things will not be, it won't be a hot market anymore. And I would encourage you now to be really studying your wins, and some of your losses. But a call review process is what most professionals don't do. They only think about, hey, I got my wins, and they maybe look at some of the losses. But what we've done is we've created a ton of great tools that we put together. And one of them is a call review guide. And this is a tool that's going to help you with yourself, or if you have sales teams, to break down your calls, whether it was one that was lost or one that you won. And what it does is give you question prompts to help you discover where you can improve. What that means is, at the end of the day, you're going to increase your sales, you're going to increase your conversion rates, and ultimately the revenues and the incomes that you bring in the door. And so listen, you don't need to know sales like jiu-jitsu in order to implement any part of the system. That's sort of the language we're using in order to reinforce these concepts. So whether you're somebody who is a solopreneur, solo practitioner, whether or not you're part of a small team, or you are running a team, or maybe you even have a large team that you're running, the Sales Jiu-Jitsu system is the exact steps that you need in order to get to the next level. So listen, you can take the 7 strategies that we've given you here and go implement them on your own. Or I just want to spend like 4 minutes with you and just tell you how you can move faster with a proven system that we have in our How to Sell the Sales Jiu-Jitsu Way, which is a coaching program for 8 weeks that we put together. We've created this in a way where we have all 30 steps, all 30 systems and strategies already with videos and fillable worksheets and training elements. We have weekly coaching what we do that supports the curriculum. You're going to go through some of the curriculum, and then we're going to take it up on a coaching call and do live interactions. Each of the 30 lessons is supported with fast and actionable. I don't like long lessons. I like short, implementable lessons. It's supported with templates and worksheets so you can get things going right away. And really what we're doing is translating the physicality of jiu-jitsu into each lesson. And then at the very end, we do a 30-day implementation, a whole implementation system. Just bear with me for another 4 minutes. We're going to get right into Q&A. Appreciate your time. So in the beginning, we're going to introduce the ideas of the core elements of jiu-jitsu and really be able to understand the systems and frameworks where we're going to be bringing together the physicality of the art to sales. As we move into pre-fight, this is really the emotional game, the mindset and your emotions and how to reset them and come with the best version of yourself for every sales engagement. Module 3, this is where we are closing the gap between ourselves and the problem that we solve and the success that we want. In Module 4, this is the winning module where we're going to really make everything losing impossible and winning inevitable in every situation. As we move into Module 5, this is post-fight. This is the analysis element, learning from every experience and having the systems in order to make that learning possible. And then we go into a 30-day implementation plan in Module 6. We're going to do live coaching every single Monday for an hour where we actually do live scenarios where we're not doing more than about 5 minutes of teaching. And then we basically take questions of you implementing the system. As a bonus, I've put together an anatomy of a sales call where I actually dissect a call. You get to watch the call, then you can watch me dissecting the call. And actually, as a bonus, 3 years later for this individual, he actually dissects what he thought was going on at that call, what was going on for him. And it's an interesting little case study that I put together for you. So all in told, an 8-week program that we have, it's only $197. You can go to salesjujitsubook.com/how-to-sell. That's sales, JIUJITSU book.com/how-to-sell. And we've actually backed this up with a 30-day guarantee. I don't know anybody that does it for a $197 product, but we do, just because we believe in what we're able to do with you in 8 weeks. Listen, sales is the lifeblood of anyone's business, and as real estate agents and as brokers, if you don't have people working with you, you cannot help them. And at the end of the day, many people feel uneasy in the sales moment. They love delivering of what they do, but they don't fall in love with the sales process. And what I would love to invite you to do over the next 8 weeks is actually fall in love with the sales process itself, that it becomes easy, it becomes something that you love to do. And in the end of the day, is something that's going to help a lot of people, because we really do feel that sales activities are noble. It is the thing that gets the right solutions to the right people. And when they are in good homes, when they're able to sell their homes for a good price, it contribute to the economy in such an amazing way that ultimately you're doing such good in this world. So that's why we see sales as a noble activity. Well, I want to thank you all for being here with us, and I'd love to move into some Q&A. So if you want to ask a live question, we'll actually love to bring you up. I think we got the tech figured out on that, and we can actually bring you up. One of the questions that we get commonly asked is like, hey, Daniel, like what would be of all the 7 that we learned today, what is the 1 or 2 that you would recommend that I implement right away? And what I would say is that reviewing some of your wins, which is probably something that a lot of folks don't do, doing that right away is one of the things that I would double down on right away. And the second part is probably future casting. Those 2 things right of the 7 to implement right away would be something very, very powerful. We can see if anybody would love to come up and ask a question, but we did have one earlier from George as how is this related to reverse psychology? And I think there are a lot of elements in what we teach that have that, especially in the cost of inaction, right? It is a reverse psychology type element where we're having people state for themselves, if they don't do this, what is going to be that cost to them. And all the while we understand that it's really about us being able to have them tied to something so that later on when we bring it out, people don't like to be in contradiction to themselves. If they contradict themselves, it feels uneasy. If you've ever like done it by mistake in a meeting or something. So when you contradict yourself, it just is an uneasy feeling. And getting people into that domain of being able to have them make that right decision is what we need to guide ourselves as professionals. That is just a really powerful way to do that. So if you're interested in asking more questions, you can go ahead and put that in the chat, or let me know that you have a question and we can promote you to a panelist and we can actually ask that question live, which is another option for that as well.
Just for those listening, I've gotten through our coaching program, I've gotten to see Daniel kind of in his element with entrepreneurs, with business owners, real estate agents who have specific sales challenges, and just to see him be able to kind of really help people immediately. So I'd highly recommend, if you have an issue, a challenge you're experiencing right now, it's a great opportunity. He's a real sales black belt, so take advantage if you can.
So we got a question in here. How would you respond to a seller who says their fear is fear of the unknown? So it's the fear of the unknown. This is a great one. So oftentimes, especially when people are new, I know when I was a first-time buyer, I was petrified of like not knowing. I'm a systems and process guy, so I love knowing everything that's going to happen, and not knowing everything made me really uneasy. Great job that my agent did the very first time that she put me through to buy our first home, was really walking me through that unknown so that it became known. The short answer is there are many. Pick another domain that you know about where going into unknown. So is something common. It's like, do you go hiking? Yeah. Cool. Do you know the entire path and you're hiking every time you go out? Did you not go on the first date because you didn't know everything about your partner? Did you not take chances or risks in your life in other domains? So if you link, so once you know that person, we talk about, we have a methodology for rapport building. It's very fast. And if you implement that correctly, you'll know something about that individual. I would link to something that they already do or like or know because you've done that intelligence, and link it to something else where there is some ambiguity. There's some things that are unknown in their lives, and you know that they've already done it. And you're like, well, you like to do that, don't you? Oh yeah. So you don't know everything, correct? No, you're right. I don't. Cool. Elliot, go ahead.
So one of the things that's coming to mind is kind of the unknown that a lot of my students face when entering a competition, and they'll often feel quite nervous. And the question is, how does nervousness manifest itself? Butterflies in the stomach, sweaty palms, accelerated heartbeat. But what's the difference between nervousness and excitement? How does excitement manifest? It's butterflies in the stomach, sweaty palms, accelerated heartbeat. What's going on is nervousness is thinking about the future you do not want. Excitement is thinking about the future you do want. And so if we can take that nervous seller who's afraid of the unknown, and as Daniel was saying earlier, paint a picture of a future that's exciting to them, and ask them questions like, if it went perfectly, what would that look like? And this we get into with this idea of game planning. What's your optimal outcome? So that's something that comes up, that came to mind from the kind of domain of sports psychology that might be relevant, Daniel.
I love it. That's what Elliot brings to this, is really a sports psychology perspective. And when you add the two together, it's really, really powerful. My 25 years of sales experience and Elliot's 25 of jiu-jitsu and just in sports psychology, it gets really, so Chris has a great question here. So it's a hot market, and the average property is receiving multiple offers. What steps can I take to make my client's offer stand out regardless of the down payment terms? I love that. This is why understanding a person, we talk about this in the book and in the course, is like understanding an individual that you're working with, their why. Like, what is their why and how powerful is it? Is it a new family that's cobbled together an incredible, like the best that they can do for an offer, and they have a good story? How do you share that story with the seller? Is it a letter? Is it a video that they create? There's a book called How to Get a Meeting with Anyone. And in this book, the gentleman was an artist, and he tells a story about how he was trying to get a meeting with a high level executive. And he found out from their assistant that they love fishing. And he created a 9-foot high board that he drew a gorgeous photo, not a photo, but like drew a hyper realistic image of them fishing. And it's like even has them catching their favorite type of fish. And he sawed the thing in half and wrote on the back, if you want the other half, give me a call. Here's my phone number. And shipped it to him. And he got the meeting. So pattern disrupts in the sales process. I remember I was trying to win some business at some manufacturers. And I'm like, how can I like get past their gatekeepers? I shipped them a drill. Like a regular drill in a big case, and I put a letter inside. I said, I want to drill down to your problems. And man, it got my meetings. It got me meetings. It got meetings. And that's why pattern disrupts in some way, shape, or form, and trying different things and seeing that what matters. But I think telling a personal story in a unique way, if it's, this is an out of the box thinking, but there are something called a video box. They're about $25. And they're like a little box, and the inside is a video screen, and in a little like, it looks like a size of a postcard. You open the thing up and it plays a video right automatically. Sometimes there's a couple of buttons to make some options, but there's a video that played. Imagine having your buyer record a personal video to the sellers, and you have that delivered as part of when you deliver the offer. Just some things to make you think about different ways. There's BombBomb, which is a great video tool. My team sends out, each of them probably sends out a couple thousand of these things. It's BOMB, BOMB.com, and you send a video email to somebody. And we close more business at Advanced Your Reach using this video technique, because it's a pattern disrupt. You wouldn't expect to get a video on somebody talking to you in any domain. So it's a pattern disrupt. So I'd be looking for those opportunities to pattern disrupt and tell those personal stories. But I appreciate that question, Chris.
One thing that's coming to mind with this, Chris, is in a sense, your buyer is in a sense on your sales team. And so thinking about the way we would approach it from the Sales Jiu-Jitsu lens, when we get into the fight section, we talk about connection and connecting on your terms. And this idea is that you and your buyer are needing to now connect with the seller. And so, Daniel just gave some great suggestions for how to do that, but thinking like the more of a personal connection there is, the stronger that the chance of your buyer being prioritized comes into reality.
Chris, how did that land for you? Let me know in the chat. Awesome. Let me know if anything else comes up for any of you. I'd love to. We have another 10 minutes on the clock. I'd love to be able to tackle one or two more questions. I love enjoying like this kind of sparring, because it's where I love playing, and this is exactly what we do every week in the coaching program. People come to the table and say, I had this scenario happen this week. How would you handle this differently? Or you have something coming up that's happening, and it's like, how would you adjust for this? And it's a lot of fun over those 8 weeks where we just dive into these sort of scenarios and we apply the lessons learned every single week.
Or even historically, if there was a engagement you had a challenge with, just to hone those skills, being able to pick Daniel's brain has been quite valuable for a lot of folks.
Well, awesome. I don't see any other questions coming in. If there's any others, please say. I'm happy to bring you live too if you want to address, but I don't see any others. So I'm going to say thanks so much, everyone, for being here. It was an incredible opportunity to serve all of you who help so many people in this world, with gaining a home or selling a home, gaining a mortgage. It is an incredible opportunity in this marketplace right now to help people really establish some incredible wealth. So thank you for what you do. Thank you for the people that you serve. Thanks so much for being here and listening to us today. If this has resonated with you, encourage you to check out. I'm just going to put the link one more time. salesjujitsubook.com/how to sell. Really, really appreciate your time here today. Have yourself an incredible day. Already sends a last minute here, so I'll answer this, and then I think we'll end the meeting. But Daniel, Elliot mentioned, how do you mentally prepare for a match? Well, that's great. I mean, I think I want Elliot to mention this as well, but we have a process, a 3-step process that we have in the program, and one of those is really what I call a power book, is looking at and categorizing and recording all your wins and what went into actually making those wins happen. And especially newer reps, or even people that have been doing this in your profession for a while, categorizing and pulling together an actual written record of some incredible moments in your career that have defined how you do what you do, some moments of brilliance, and actually putting it out in detail. And then from there, having that as something you can go to for inspiration in the times where things aren't going well, and reminding you, oh, I remember that. Remember how it felt for you. What was going on for you in your game? And we talk about things like protecting your biology and really eating well, exercising well, and having a routine around that you do in and day out, and reverse engineering your ideal day. Like I wear an Oura ring, for example, because I want to reverse engineer my perfect sleep. I knew what I had to do yesterday to make sure I was prepared for you today. And I knew everything I needed. I knew what I had to eat. I knew what time I had to go to sleep. I knew what time I had to get up in the morning. I knew what workout I had to do today. I knew how much, what I was going to eat this morning before this talk. I've reverse engineered how I can show up for a talk powerfully every single time. I also know what I can reverse engineer for a sales day, or if I'm at a seminar, for example. So when you can reverse engineer your biology and your mental game, so that you can, your biology affects your mental game. Like, it is linked. And if you're not in tune with those two things, you will never be able to fully mentally prepare unless your biology is supporting you. The final thing is to have a routine of rebound. There's going to be the days where things aren't going well. And having a routine where you are, what happens? So you're going to listen to 8 minutes of specific music that you've done. Is it doing yoga or meditation? What is it for you that will help you rebound and wash away the emotional elements of a negative encounter, so you're prepared within a very short period of time? I have a 16-minute routine for myself that I go through every time, and it's the diligence of doing systems consistently that make winning inevitable and losing impossible. Elliot, what would you add to that from a sports side?
Yeah, so in pre-fight, that little pyramid Daniel showed at the beginning, we break it down into inner game, which is more specific to what you're asking about, but the other pieces are very important. Inner game, intelligence, and strategy. So inner game, we start with your why, and your why is going to be what drives you to have the motivation to push through when there are difficult times in a match, in an engagement, sales engagement. But from why, we then have to have a specific goal, and from our goal, then we get into the mindset and emotions. Daniel talked about the power book. The way this applies on the mats is I came up with this idea of a highlight reel. I saw such a jump in my performances on the mat when I went from worrying about what the opponent might be good at or might be successful with to focusing on myself and seeing that highlight reel of all my best moves over and over. Those times I was successful, those times I was in the zone, those times I won, seeing that as a highlight reel just put me in a different state that allowed me to perform at my best. And when we get into the strategy side of things, you have to have a game plan. But the problem is, as soon as step one in the game plan happens, things are going to go wrong. And so if you only have one linear game plan, what happens when things do go wrong? You have to have what we call quantum strategy. So you have a plan for step 1, 2, 3, but at step 2, if something else happens, you have to have a 2A that takes you on a whole different track. And at 2C, if something goes wrong, the idea is to create multiple kind of realities in your mind and have a strategy for each. And that will be one half of what allows you to feel confident and prepared. But it goes back to what Daniel said before. If you're not training these things, if you're not putting yourself in actually challenging, emotionally challenging situations where you have maybe another broker or agent who's playing the role of the prospect and actually putting you on the spot with things that you didn't prepare for. If you haven't trained for that intensity, then what's going to happen when you actually get prepared? What gives us confidence from training on the mats in jiu-jitsu is that we're actually training against people who try to stop us. So having a well-developed, robust game plan, but then actually putting in the work to make sure that you are prepared for whatever can go wrong, because things will go askew, but you can bring it back to that ultimate goal of winning through whatever prepared game plans you've developed.
Hey guys, thanks so much, Artie. What a great question to end the session on. Again, I appreciate all of you for being here until the end. It was an incredible opportunity to serve all of you. Again, salesjujitsubook.com/how to sell. Be a pleasure to serve you over the next 8 weeks to really dial in all these methodologies and systems to help you increase your conversion rates. Again, thanks so much for being here, and we'll see you next time. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.